I often wondered about the disparity of races and the prejudice between them. These are my thoughts on this subject. Please note that I could be wrong. I will begin with the adverse impact of hot weather. Tropical climate, heat, humidity, etc. encourages pests, bacteria, mosquitoes, flies, rodents, which create disease, death, suffering, and adversely influence commerce and productivity. I will illustrate an example in the next slide. As you can see here, this is the screwworm fly. A typical fly lays around 200 to 300 eggs, which develop into the screwworm. The name is derived from the maggots that embed themselves into the flesh of their hosts in a screw-like fashion. This stage is temperature dependent, with warm weather favoring growth. Warm weather has other side effects. It cooks the human body, similar to what you see happening here to the chicken. It darkens the skin color and even burns it into a crisp, almost as if the skin was being cooked in an oven. Besides the depiction of the chicken above, you have already heard of the metaphor of the grapes turning into dehydrated, burnt resins in the sun. But that is not all hot weather can cause. It can result in discoloration in the genital area, around the thighs, the armpits, the neck, where you notice discoloration due to sweating and heat. This is because the heat and humidity literally cooks some body parts more than others. I suspect that hot weather may also spur hair in regions where you least expect them. Hair can grow in people who may not have any genetic predisposition to having hairy posteriors. It may create aggressively hirsute or hairy inhabitants. This is probably because heat causes blood to rise to the skin, providing nutrients to the hair. Due to sunlight, your iris can also burn and go from blue to gray to brown to finally black. Here you see a perfect set of beautiful features formed in cold places, my favorite one being this one. It may be because low light in cold places causes people to sleep on their back. High light in hot places causes people to sleep on their faces. Perhaps the nose constricts and rises in search of relatively hotter air, as is the case here in a cold part of the world. The nose depresses and expands for cold air that sinks to the ground in hot places, resulting in these familiar faces. Weather may also influence height, as can be seen here with the tallest woman and the shortest man. The body perhaps reaches for hot air above in cold places and rises with it. The body depresses towards the ground as it searches for cold in hot places. Perhaps hot air may also result in darkening and malformation of hair color, from blonde to red to brunette to black. Perhaps it may also impact the texture of hair by turning straight hair, like this one here, into frizzy hair and curly hair. Evolutionary reasons suggest that puffy, frizzy hair traps air above the head more than straight hair. The trapped air acts as a layer of insulation and a coolant for the head. I suspect that heat may also mutate the genotype, so you end up passing your mutations to the next generation. Pollutants in the water result in stunted growth as water flows down towards the equator as it is polluted by people living in the northern or polar regions. It is no wonder that anger is depicted as steam coming out of the ears. Emotion runs cool in the northern climes. Perhaps anger in the hot regions lasts longer and is much more explosive. Cold refrigerates the human body, it cools it and preserves it, reduces the cooking and decaying of it. In cold places you have access to water that is purer since you are upstream and get lots of snow and rain, naturally distilled water. You have access to vegetation that is fruitful as opposed to equatorial deserts like this one here. The deserts permit little growth of vegetation near the equators. Now for the advantages of hot weather. As depicted here, it seems that hot weather motivates mating, since it seems to encourage aggressive sexual behavior due to increased blood flow to the extremities. This could mean the equatorial regions could be good for tourism or honeymoons.